Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus Community is B-Class Heavyweight. I'll just come on to talk about the weight in a minute. The first race is at Laguna Seca as we all pile down towards the first corner. The Transit got a very good start. I'm assuming that thing was four-wheel drive. Sadly, there is a little bit of lag occurring. This time a Mustang took out an Audi TT, I think. Yeah, it's one of those things, unfortunately. Now, as far as weight goes, for this event, the cars had to be 3,500 pounds, I can speak, or heavier. Now, admittedly, that is not massively heavy for cars. However, you have to remember, Forza is a racing game, and the cars that make it into Forza are often the lightened and sporty versions of whatever model of car it might be that is in question. So 3,500 pounds is actually quite heavy for a car, especially for a car that's purpose-built for racing, as the Lexus finds its way past the Transit there. It's very rare that I run a car more than 3,000 pounds in any race class that I do, unless it is specifically like when we raced SUVs. Other than that, it's very rare you use a car more than 3,500 pounds. Also, I wanted to keep a decent variety, a good number of vehicles that weight or more, so we could have a good selection of cars, and a good selection of cars did turn up as well. There's all sorts of vehicles competing here, as this is the battle for the lead as we come around towards the end of the first lap. The Lexus got a bad drive off the corkscrew. I think he ran wide, put a wheel in the sand, and now the Impala is trying to find a way past. Looks to go around the outside, can't quite get it done. Tries to do a bit of a cutback, now finds himself all out of position for the final corner, and again is going to try and do another cutback. Husky is driving the El Camino, which you see in third as the Impala gets very sideways. He cannot quite get a good drive for the final corner. Also, the Lexus was pretty damn quick in a straight line. Yeah, Husky is driving the Impala, whereas I am driving a Hyundai Genesis Coupe. I was amazed to see that this thing was it's only just over the 3,500 pound limit as well. As we come into the first corner, I'd started very near the back and was trying to make up places. I go around the outside of the Stingray. Husky fell off the road and is trying to come back on. That's where you can see his car there. And I just try to go all the way around the outside of the Stingray in the first corner. Managed to just about not get squeezed off. And as we come through, I think this is a second corner now, I managed to make up two positions. That possibly overtake of the evening by me on this occasion. That was an incredibly scary thing, going around the outside of two cars into the first corner. It's very easy to get squeezed out. I very nearly did. I'm pretty sure I had one wheel on the sand through the exit of that first corner. And now I am on the hunt, chasing down an Aston Martin. I'll kind of bring in the Maserati with me on this one. Unlike the previous few events, where I think there was one event where I didn't start outside the top three, this one I don't think I started higher than 13th or something like that in any of these races. I was trying to make up positions, and I was trying a little bit too hard as we come into the corkscrew. I managed to drive into the back of the Aston Martin. Completely my fault on that one, just outbraked myself. Clattered the back of the Aston Martin. No real damage was done to the Aston, however I completely buggered my own engine up, and I now found myself sort of in an awkward position as I'm sort of battling with these two cars with a broken Hyundai. Somehow I managed to get up the inside of the Aston Martin through there, but my engine is hurting too much and I decided to dive into the pit lane. The Maserati then tries to have a look at getting past the Aston Martin, and things do not end so well as the Aston gets spun around. I would like to say well done and thank you to the driver of the Aston for not instantly spinning his car around. He waited until there was a safe spot to do so, so thank you very much for that, and for avoiding a big collision as well. There was an interesting battle developing over, I think this is for 8th, I'm not entirely sure, towards the bottom half of the top 10 anyway, between a Stingray, a Camaro, a Transit and the Recover and Aston. An unusual group of cars, maybe not a Camaro and a Stingray, but yeah, an unusual group of cars to see battling as Transit's looking up the inside of the Aston. You're not going to overtake through there. Not with the big Transit. Amazingly, they all get through there relatively safely, which I was surprised to see. I was sure there was going to be a crash there, but somehow the Transit got stopped. That Transit's phenomenal in a straight line, terrible through the corners, as you'd kind of expect. There's a little bit of bumping between the Stingray and the Camaro as they go through the corkscrew. I believe the Stingray is probably a little bit better on the handling, Camaro is a little bit faster. Again, the Corvette's trying to find a way past, is looking, can't really overtake through here. It's very tricky through these fast corners. Not a very big braking zone, if a braking zone at all. So very tough to overtake through here. The Aston Martin though has got a very good run as they come into the final corner. I think the Camaro was very slow on entrance into there. The Stingray just bumps into it. The Aston gets the best drive out of the three as they come onto the home straight. However, it doesn't quite have the straight line speed of the Camaro as they run across the start-finish line, but it won't be long before the Aston finds its way past. At the front, And there was an interesting battle developing between the Lexus and the Impala. Lexus very fast in a straight line, Impala very fast through the corners. However, weird magic happened. I don't know. I don't understand why the Impala did a front flip. I have no idea. There was no cars around to lag back into it. It just did a front flip for no apparent reason, completely killed the car. Now in that clip it shows the Ferrari is getting hit, or the Ferrari hitting the Impala as it goes past. However, the Ferrari doesn't seem to lose any speed, so I'm not so sure. I ignore any damage on the Ferrari. Yeah, that's probably the strangest crash I've ever seen. On Forza, that one. I really can't explain any of it at all. It's ridiculous. Anyway, my Hyundai, I was making my way back up through the field after my pit stop. I was trying to keep out of trouble in getting past this big squabbling group. Luckily for me, the Transit fell off the road. I then jump up the inside of the Camaro as we go into the final corner. My Hyundai is an incredibly fast car. I was really pleased when I built this thing. It's got great straight line speed, and I don't have any problems through the corner. You can see it catches up to the back of the Stingray on the straight. It's an incredibly fast car. I haven't touched the engine, I don't think, or I have very minor upgrades. Very fast straight line, and I find myself again going around the outside of a Stingray in the first corner. This time there isn't a Maserati on the inside to complicate things, and I don't have to kind of go on the gravel to get out of the way. The Corvette has a bit of a dive into the second corner. I didn't think I was going to need to defend. I probably should have done, but we both get away without any major issues. At this point, there was very little going on in the race, to be honest. It was pretty much just me having all the excitement that I was trying to make my way back up through the grid. I'm now battling with the Aston Martin, looking at going around the outside. Can't get around the outside of the corner, however it does put me in the position to dive up the inside into the final corner. I'm going to outbrake myself a little bit, run a bit wide. Aston Martin's trying to do a cutback. However, then you have the straight line speed of this Hyundai. It really is quite impressive. Aston Martin tries to come over a little bit too soon. No harm done. They're very easy to misjudge your car if you're not used to it or whatever, and try to drop in behind somebody and just clip them. On this occasion, neither of us took any damage, so all is good. Yeah, my Hyundai was making short work of the field, and it is a blooming fast car. There was an unusual battle going on. I think this is for around 10th at this point. I can't remember. Between the Transit and the Camaro. The Transit is trying to go around the outside of turn 2. That's incredibly brave. It's very hard to do that normally, let alone when you're driving a massive van. However, the Camaro doesn't get a particularly good exit out of here, and the Transit has humongous straight line speed, and sure enough can get its car on the inside. Still got to try and get that damn thing stopped, which he does just about, and he can make up a position. Yeah, there were a few Transits. I'm glad I wasn't driving one. They looked a handful. Everyone who was driving one, it looked like an absolute handful. There's a broken Impala, and I think it got stuck. It couldn't actually get up the hill, or we pulled off. But well, also thank you to him for keeping his car out of the way, keeping his car out of trouble. At the front, and things have been closing up. The gap between the two cars had been getting smaller. There haven't really been that many battles going on anywhere for the majority of this race. The Ferrari had been catching the Lexus, though. You can see how hard the Ferrari is pushing, trying to find its way past the Lexus. I'm pretty sure the Ferrari isn't damaged. I think that's just a laggy replay, so don't worry about that. However, the Lexus was holding him off, and the Ferrari is going to have a very tough time to come in towards the final corner. This is about the only chance you're going to get to overtake now, and the Ferrari is just too far back. The Lexus goes defensive, and the Ferrari cannot find a way past. He's trying to do a bit of a cutback, but he can't quite get it done. And then it's just a drag race down to the finish line. The Lexus drove well. He fended off the Impala and fends off the Ferrari to take the win. That was a very close finish between the two of them. I believe my Hyundai took the fastest lap by quite a margin. I wish I had been further up the field and could have been involved in some of them battles. We move on to race 2 now, and this is at the Silverstone International Circuit. First corner here can often be a little bit problematic. I believe an Impala got spun around. Other than that, everybody gets through without any major incidences. There's a few tradings of paints going on, but no major collisions. As I said, unfortunately I do think an Impala got spun around. This corner though is where the big issues are. Many people, I think 3 or 4 cars ended up on the sand or on the sticky stuff or whatever on the outside of that corner. Very easy to get it wrong. Nobody went straight on though. Everybody actually made the turn this time, I think anyway. I didn't see it right at the back, but it's quite often when you drive on these shortened circuits, people forget and then just go straight on to carry on to the long version. and it's often we see that in these races, but I don't think anybody this time. My Hyundai was making progress yet again. You saw its straight line speed as it blasted past a Camaro. We then end up going 3 wide as we head towards bridge. That's pretty damn scary, almost 4 wide at one point. Luckily I have the straight line speed to keep out of that. The Barrera, Camaro and Skyline do go 3 wide through bridge. I think the Skyline backed out, which was probably quite wise. Very scary trying to fit 3 cars through there. Barrera runs slightly wide on the exit. You don't really want to be doing that, and gives the position away to the Camaro. That Camaro actually looked like a very, very good car to drive. However, it was lacking in straight line speed, as you saw on that back straight how easily my Hyundai went past it. I'm pretty sure the Barrera's tripod in there. It keeps looking like it does that on the replays as they run out of the final corner. Now the Camaro's in a little bit of trouble, as that Barrera's not slow either. The Camaro is now trying to go defensive. Also, for people wondering, you can drop the PI on the Skyline. That's how that R34 Skyline is in B class. The Barrera finds itself past the Camaro before they even get to the first corner. However, he does run a little bit wide and the Camaro can get back past him. At the front, and it was a BMW 8 Series battling with yet another Camaro. The 8 Series almost gets the move done. The Camaro just slides a little bit wide. They take each other out, and it was an easy pass for the lead. I was expecting a lot more work to get past these two, as that BMW is a monster in a straight line. It's probably the second fastest car here. It's only beaten by Husky's El Camino, which had started right down at the back as well. So the BMW, despite going off on the gravel, has so much straight line speed and pull up alongside the Camaro. They go into the hairpin. BMW's outbrakes himself though, runs an awful lot wide. I'm going sideways, I'm having fun in my Hyundai, and now the BMW is in a Camaro sandwich. The grey Camaro caught up to the pair of them while they were kind of tangling with each other as they run in towards bridge. BMW's looking around the outside again. I saw so many cars trying to go around the outside. I don't think anybody did it successfully. It's very, very tough to go around the outside of there because it's such a tiny braking zone. In some cars, it's not even a braking zone, it's just lift off. BMW is now in the really tricky position of wanting to attack, but you've also got to be very, very careful because you've got a car right behind you who's looking to try and attack you as well. The black and red Camaro runs a little bit wide on the entrance. BMW is always trying to look for a way to get up the inside. However, now they're on the straight, the BMW has the best chance it's going to get. You can see how much that grey Camaro was dropped when it comes to a straight line. As I said, Husky's El Camino was incredibly fast in a straight line. It was the fastest car here by quite a margin over everything. However, it was rather a handful as we come into the hairpin. He got the move done on the Barrera in a straight line, no problem, but just couldn't get the damn thing stopped. There's also a big battle going on further back. However, with that straight line speed or with that acceleration, he can get in front of the Barrera before they ever reach bridge and can just about hold his position. But the El Camino didn't look particularly easy to drive. As I said, there was a big old scrap going on further back. I'm not sure what. I think this is for the lower half, a lower bit of the top 10, with another Hyundai Genesis, a Firebird of some description. There's a Ferrari Testarossa in there. There's another Hyundai somewhere, and the Skyline R34 are all within a few hundred meters of each other. This Firebird Trans Am was another very, very fast car in a straight line. It looked even more of a handful than Husky's El Camino. Although, on a track like this where there are quite a lot of straights, it does help to have that straight line speed. You see how much of an advantage this Firebird has as he comes on to the start-finish straight. In the background, the Testarossas up the inside of the Skyline. But yeah, this Firebird looked like an absolute handful through the corners. It was sliding everywhere, but did have an awful lot of straight line speed, which it could use to good use in some points. The Hyundai, the other Genesis, I don't know, whatever, what's the plural of Genesis? I don't know. They were making their way through the field. I think that most of us started kind of a bit down the field. There's also a few people running wide. I believe both the Hyundais were caught out. This one here, where it was running full aero. I never tend to run aero when it comes to these anymore because I want that bit of straight line speed. Because as I've said many a time, if you have the car that's fast in a straight line, it's much easier to overtake and much easier to defend. This guy though was running aero, and his Hyundai was very quick through the corners. It was making its way through the field. As you saw there, it got past the whatever it was racing, I've forgotten already, and was now onto the back of the Testarossa. Testarossa, an interesting choice of car. I think it's B499 standard PI, so you have very, very little room for upgrades, although it is quite a fast car to begin with. And the Ferrari ran a little bit wide onto the sand. Don't really want to be doing that on the final corner, and the Hyundai can get alongside it and manages to get the move done long before they ever reach the first corner. Yeah, it's always a tough decision when it comes to building your cars. Do you start with a car with a lower PI and kind of build up, or do you start with a car that's standard quite quick but don't have very many room for upgrades? I tend to go for the lower PI and build up. Husky was making his way up through the field. This was the battle for third. Despite that huge straight line speed, he was struggling to get past this Camaro just because he couldn't get the thing stopped, couldn't get the thing turned. Again, you'll see the acceleration out of the hairpin is phenomenal, and he'll catch up to the Camaro as they come through bridge, but you're not going to go down the outside there, especially not in one of the worst handling cars you could have. And then it becomes to the Camaro's strong point through these tight, twisty sections. Husky's car really sort of just make a little bit of a gap, but it needs this gap because as soon as it gets to the straight, the El Camino is phenomenally fast. We'll see around here how much of a gap the Camaro has as he leaves the final corner through here. Camaro actually just seems to be a fairly good handling car. I wasn't expecting them to be, but these things just seem to be driving fairly well. We'll see how much of a gap he has to the El Camino as they come onto the start-finish straight. Yeah, that damn thing is so blooming fast. Coming towards the first corner though, now he can't really use it though, because again, we're back onto the brakes and around a fairly nasty corner this one, and the Camaro can just pull away. This battle looks rather familiar. I don't quite know what happened to the grey Camaro, didn't see. Either way, he dropped back behind the Alfa and he was trying to find a way past and make up so much ground there under braking. That's quite impressive actually. Camaro finds himself on the inside but has absolutely no straight line speed, so the Alfa can cover fairly easily. This is my favourite overtaking manoeuvre around Silverstone. I didn't get a chance to use it. You wait until somebody runs a little bit wide through bridge, ends up on a slightly awkward line, dive up the inside through there, and then you can hang him out to dry around these next two corners, and the Camaro gets a fairly straightforward pass in the end on the Alfa. However, now he's passed, it comes on to one of the long straights. Silverstone is just quite a challenging track, especially the international layout, because there's two very, very long straights. However, there are some quite nasty corners, the first corner in particular, and this final section is very tight and twisty, so building a car for this track is rather tricky. The Camaro doesn't even bother going defensive, he knows the Alfa's going to be faster than him. However, they run into the first corner, the Camaro didn't really need to. He's got so much grip, so much better handling, he can drive straight around the outside of the Alfa. That's a pretty tough thing to do as well. Very impressive piece of driving there from both cars as well, not to run into each other. Going around the outside of that first corner is pretty damn scary. Further back, the Hyundai Genesis, whatever they're called, I don't know what the plural of it is, were battling amongst themselves. Again, you can see the advantage of not running aero in a straight line. The black and green car has a big lunge, runs very, very wide through the hairpin. Ignore that, I think it's a Chrysler, he's a lap down. However, the gold car cannot quite get the cutback. Yeah, there are advantages to running aero for sure. You have a lot more grip than those of us who don't. However, you do suffer in a straight line. At the front, I'd had a fairly quiet, fairly straightforward race. I didn't have a huge margin to the BMW. I think it's the BMW 8 Series. I was tempted to run the 8 Series actually. I do quite like that car, but it wasn't as quick as my Genesis when I was testing it. And in this race, I hadn't really been under very much pressure as I try and do a bit of showboating, slide to finish. I didn't want to do too much slide. Nothing worse than trying to sort of do a bit of showboating at the end and spin yourself out. But yeah, being a fairly straightforward, my Hyundai is such a nice car around this track. Well, the BMW had kept me fairly honest. Husky, I believe, ended up in 4th. He couldn't find a way past the Camaro in the end. We move on to our final race at the Sebring Club Circuit, and there was already a crash before they ever reached the first corner. Not quite sure. I think the Camaro squeezed I think it was a Mitsubishi GTO that ended up spinning off the front of a Mustang. The first corner here is often a little bit hectic because it narrows so much, such a tight hairpin. There was a bit of crashing, shall we say, going on further back, but there wasn't too many major damages except for that poor Mitsubishi who got spun around. This BMW didn't really have to do much to get past the Camaro. The Camaro completely outbrakes itself, runs very, very wide, and the BMW, sorry, finds himself in the lead. This is one of the advantages if you start near the front. The grid's completely on random for every one of these races, so it's pure luck where you start. If you can get to the front and get away cleanly, you stand a pretty good chance of doing well. Me and Husky started well down the order, and we're having to make our way through the field. We found ourselves in the battle, well, first with the Camaro, who fell off the road, and then with a BMW. And BMW is pretty quick in a straight line. No match for Husky's Camaro. My Hyundai is very fast in a straight line, but it's not as quick as these two. Again, I was probably around 3rd or 4th fastest in a straight line down here as you come into the first corner. BMW is having to defend from the El Camino. That thing is so fast in a straight line. Husky's looking around the outside. Never really going to happen with a big slidey muscle car. Again, I can get a better run out of this first corner, but can't really do anything about the straight line speed as the El Camino is just gone past the BMW. The BMW, I think, must have had a bit of a slow run out that first corner as I was catching up to them as well. I then I don't know why the BMW didn't go as defensive as I was expecting, so I do a quick lunge up the inside. Husky runs very, very wide. I then tried to go between the two of them and end up sort of tangling a little bit with Husky, and in the end the BMW comes out the best of us. We battled for a while. There wasn't much else going on at this point. It was us three were having a great little race. I'm trying to go around the outside of the BMW. It does put me on the inside. If I can stay around the outside here, it puts me on the inside for the final corner. However, I couldn't quite do it. That BMW is pretty good in a straight line as well. As we run on to the back straight, there is a Mustang. I'm not sure if that was damaged. The replay is showing it is, and then later on it shows it isn't, so I'm not really sure. We then attempt to go 4 wide. That doesn't work, not on a straight this narrow, and I end up coming off worse. Nobody's fault, really. I think the Mustang reacted to the BMW being there, didn't realise Husky was on his outside. There was a little bit of pinball effect, and again in the first corner, this time wasn't really helped by lag. We all get away, though, without any major damage. There's a little bit of aero damage on some of the cars there. In the end, the BMW comes off worse out of that first corner. Now I'm trying to find my way past the El Camino. Now, I can't really go sort of on the inside where I'd like to be. Husky's doing a good job of defending. I'm trying to go around the outside, and I'm using all of that extra grip I have in my Hyundai. I was hoping I could get my car across to the inside for the next corner, but that blooming El Camino is too fast, and I can't quite do it. I'm not giving up yet, as I'm going to try and hold it around the outside again. Can use that extra grip, extra speed of the Hyundai, but I've just run out of road. Still, I'm stuck on the outside. Can't really do anything about it. Husky's covering, defending very, very well. And again, this time I get around the outside and I can use that extra grip. And Husky's on the inside through this corner, but cannot stay with the Hyundai. And after spending half a lap side by side with an El Camino, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. However, we are on to the start-finish straight, and the damn Chevy is far too fast for me. And I'm going to have to go very, very defensive as we go into the first corner. Again, the El Camino is right up alongside me. However, I have much, much better brakes, much more grip, and I can defend fairly easily into the first corner. However, as I'm defending, I'm not really taking ideal lines. I'm slowing myself down. The BMW is catching up to us all the while, and we go onto the back straight again. The El Camino is assisting me along a little bit, trying to find a way past. That thing is ridiculously quick. However, again, better brakes, better grip on the Hyundai mean that Husky can't repeat the move that I did on the previous lap, and I managed to hold on to my 4th position. After my, well, a lap almost side by side with Husky, he then makes things all very easy for the BMW as he runs into the first corner, just outbrakes himself and runs wide. These El Caminos never been successful in any of the versus the community. There've been quite a few in various ones. Never done particularly well. They do seem to be a rather big handful to drive. There really wasn't a huge amount going on in this race either. Me trying to make my way up through the field, to be honest, was the only overtaking that was actually going on. There's a few crashing stuff going on at the back of the field, but yeah, there just wasn't a huge amount of action in this race. There was a lot of cars were spread out as I find my way past a Shelby, I think GT500 Mustang, out of the final corner. As you go into the first corner, the Shelby actually gets to the inside. However, the brakes on the Hyundai are very, very good, and I managed to hold the position. Yeah, on both this race and on Laguna Seca, the field was pretty well spread out. Both races had a few instances. There weren't massive incidences, but yeah, they was quite spread out. As you go into the final lap now, and we're still with my car because literally nothing else was happening. I was trying so hard to catch up to second. It was close. It was within my grasp. I just run a little bit wide, and then everything goes wrong. A back marker sleeve. Not quite sure what he was doing there. Ends up, I think he was trying to get out of the way, but ends up putting the brakes on while he's on the racing line. Just a warning or advice to anybody who takes part in these: if you're being lapped, if there's nobody around you, make sure that if you're not racing with anybody, if you're gonna like try to pull over, just get off the track. You don't need to stay on the track, and most definitely get off the racing line. And unfortunately, that did kind of kill any chances of me getting second, and killed my engine quite well. At the front, the BMW had just vanished off. He really had, I think he was at 2,500 foot lead over me, who was down in 4th before I got broken. Yeah, it was gone. He made the most of starting at the front, got out of trouble, let us all squabble amongst ourselves, and had an absolutely massive lead, and had fastest lap by, I think it was 3/4 of a second over me. Yeah, he had a very, very big margin of victory. My broken Hyundai was limping back to the start-finish line, and I was under considerable threat from the BMW. Things went a little bit skew-iffy. I believe the Shelby was stopping to let me retake my position, but he wanted to try and keep ahead of the BMW, and I was so busy looking behind me, didn't know that he was on the start-finish line. I managed to change direction quick enough to avoid him. The BMW went straight in the back of him. Yeah, a bit of an odd crash on the finish line. In the end, the Shelby came 3rd. I ended up 4th. BMW ended up 5th. But yeah, a little bit scrappy finish to that race. But it wasn't the most exciting race, to be honest, and that one at Sebring. However, Silverstone was very, very interesting. Very closely fought battles going on elsewhere. And there was some interesting lag at Laguna Seca with that front flipping Impala. That's fantastic. Not for him, unfortunately, but that's a great clip. Anyway, that is it for this week's Versus the Community. The next event will be on Thursday. I've got to check the calendar. Thursday the 7th of November. We'll be starting at 7 PM GMT time, I believe it is. It is now. The cars or the vehicles that we shall be using, we're going to go up to A class for this one, and it's going to be the battle of the big block engines. So your cars have to have a displacement of 6 litres or bigger. You can have engine swaps to make to put a bigger engine in your car. You can bore the engine out, that's fine. However, it's going to have to be 6 litres or bigger to compete. It could be quite interesting, quite crashy possibly, who knows. If you wish to take part, then you can sign up on our forums. You go to FailRace versus the Community, and there is a thread in there for where you can sign up to take part in this event. Now, normally when it comes to sign up, I'm not too fussed if you post the car that you're using or not. I only ever really use that to gauge sort of the variety we're going to have. However, on this occasion, since there isn't a setting I can change to restrict it to a certain sort of displacement or not, you're going to have to post what car you are using, and if you have to upgrade the engine, you have to say what upgrades you've done, so that I can check, make sure that everything is legal. I know people could change from what they've posted. I'm going to trust that people aren't going to be arses when it comes to this. If you turn up in a Lotus, I know it's not a 6-litre Lotus, so you know, just yeah. I'm trusting that people will be sensible, that people will want to do this properly, and as we haven't had too many issues in the past. However, that is it for today, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.